Well, you were tripping around the internet and you stumbled into a hole. You ended up landing at forbasspleyersonly.com. Was that what it's called?
Yeah, that is.
All right. I remembered something. Anyway, now you're here. You're here with me, Norwood Fisher, bass player from Fishbone. How creepy, cool, or crazy is that? You fill in the blank.
In a foreign land with the guys in the band.
Hi everyone, John Liebman here. You're watching forbasspleyersonly.com. Coming to you today on location from Hollywood, California with our old friend Norwood Fisher. What's up, Norwood?
You know, I am happy to be here. It's been such a good day in Southern California. You know, I love it. Bass Player Live is cracking, and it was a beautiful start to the day.
Well, that's good. Let's talk about you, because we've kind of seen each other. We've known each other for a few years. We've hung out in Germany at the Warwick camp. We've hung out at NAMM shows. We've hung out at Bass Player Live. Let's tell the people how you got started as a bass player. I think you come from a musical family, don't you?
I do. Well, I have a family on my mother's side of the family and my father's side of the family who have become professional musicians. Very much. Cousin named Ron Canoli. He's a gigantic gospel singer. He was a soul singer when I was a child. And one of my memories of a child is actually getting his single and playing his single over and over again.
What was the name of it?
I don't remember the name of the song right now.
Okay.
But we did definitely, it was my cousin Ron Canoli, and he was on his way up. He had some medical issues that actually put him out of the game, but he found his way back through gospel in the music. So, and then my father's brothers, my uncles, Michael and Tony, they had a band called Smoke. And they were on Casablanca Records, Chocolate City, Casablanca, the same as Parliament and Cameo and whatnot, the Bogart family. And but they were, maybe they were called Black Smoke at first, and then they changed the name to Smoke. And the record label put out albums with both names on it, and it caused confusion, and it tanked because of the confusion. Anyway, like eventually, like at some point they were Donna Summer's backup band, and Uncle Michael continued to produce and do all manner of things in the music industry, you know, but those are like family influences.
So you've got music in your blood, obviously.
Yeah.
What about the bass? How did you become a bass player? What attracted you to the low end?
Well, it happened at a Graham Central Station concert.
Larry.
My first concert ever. And it was at that show that I made up my mind that bass was the way.
Because of Larry Graham?
100%. It was actually, he had a mirror pickguard on his bass, and every time the light shone on it, it reflected into the audience, and there was one particular point, it left me blinded. And it was in that blinding moment that I was like, it must mean I must need to be a bass player.
And you were about how old at the time?
I believe I was 8.
Wow. Okay. Well, so once you discovered Larry and funk bass, did you start listening to music differently? Did you have any other bass heroes or people that you admired and respected and followed and dug?
Well, I was already a funkadelic fan.
Bootsy?
And Bootsy, of course, as soon as I heard Bootsy, I was a fan. But before Bootsy, I was a funkadelic fan. And so William Billy Bass Nelson
Yes.
became a very targeted focus of my influence on me, and Cordell Boogie Mawson.
Yeah.
You know, like later on, I acquired a bass. I acquired a record collection.
How about Bernard Odom?
Not so much focused Bernard Odom. I'm talking about ultra focused listening.
Okay.
Was really Billy Bass and Boogie.
Because you're painting a picture of that era and that particular style.
Yeah. No, this was like guys that and Larry Graham, right? It's focused, like this was in my record collection. This is where I was focusing on, and there was a whole tapestry of bass players that I would hear. But I'm talking about this, like I might listen to these cats every day.
Gotcha.
Right? And you know, and later on I would discover Stanley Clarke and eventually Geddy Lee and eventually Robbie Shakespeare.
Okay.
And eventually Mike Watt.
I'm trying to weave a thread through all those names, and that's a pretty eclectic list.
Yeah, and my life, very fortunately, my first record collection was super eclectic, and I can't forget, actually, Noel Redding,
Yeah.
Jimi Hendrix, and Paul McCartney, you know, like, and now I'm spacing out
That's
right.
all right. We get the picture here.
Oh, Billy Cox. Sorry, Billy.
I was going to mention Billy Cox
Billy
when you
Cox.
mentioned Noel Redding
like,
and Hendrix.
Like all of that, you know, because I didn't know at the time that Jimi Hendrix might even play bass on his own songs, but later on, some of them bass lines is Jimi Hendrix himself.
I did not know that.
But yeah, so like, you know, and then even later on, like, it was actually Kevin O'Neill, who's the bass player for the Bus Boys, who actually lit me up to the beauty of James Jamerson,
Detroit.
you know? So all of that and more, like I could keep going, and because it's like, you know, it's so much more that influenced me, but those are the finer points.
Tell me about Fishbone. How did that come to be? Tell me about that band, because there's a ton of great stuff on YouTube and other sources.
Well, fact is, we were junior high school friends that actually all had the desire to be in a band. I was 12, about to be 13, as I first met the guys that were most of the guys that would be the original band. And by the time we got to age 14, we all got in a room together and played. Now, some of us had played leading up to that, but at 14, we were all in the room together and played. There were more people than that, but it was age 14, and so.
Would you just call that a funk band, or how would you describe that music, if I dare ask you to do such a thing?
Yeah, like the first thing we did was probably try to play some Rick James, you know? Some Rick James, some Funkadelic, some whatever was,
Funky.
you know, popular at the time. Like, those are the first things we went for. But keeping in mind that this is like 1979 and punk rock is bubbling under the surface. It's in the news, scaring parents, and reggae is in the periphery. Like, new wave was coming up, right? Like 1979, you know, the Talking Heads, Blondie, and a whole bunch of other stuff was kind of bubbling under the surface, percolating to come up. You know?
What's keeping you busy these days, Norwood?
Ultimately, like I got various projects that I busy myself with. You know, outside of Fishbone is the main one is Trulio Disgracious. I just celebrated 30 years of Trulio Disgracious, and funny enough, the band came together because there was an Adrian Sherwood and Tackhead show playing at the Palace, which is now the Avalon. But and all my friends, musical friends, were asking me, could I get them into the show? I'm not on the show. I can't put you on the guest list. I had the bright idea that, like, if I could be the opening band, then maybe I could put everybody in the band and get them in. Like, that's how I'm going to get my friends in.
There you go.
I pulled it off.
Great idea.
11-piece band. You know, all my homies play for the ends. And a year later, Vernon Reed calls. He's like, yeah, we're playing L.A., playing the Palace when Fishbone opened. Well, it was like, at the time, Fishbone was headlining 2 nights, sold out at the Palace. Like, Fishbone can't necessarily open your show. I was like, man, maybe I could put together something and we could be the opening band. And he was like, okay, cool. So they gave me a reason a year later to pull it together. We did a warm-up show. It was actually to open for Soundgarden at Club Lingerie.
Yeah.
Right? But the headlining band played in the middle, so we actually closed the show. And so that's how we warmed up for the Living Color show.
Cool.
And so anyway, it's been like 30 years of me doing this, and it's classically a 27-piece band. It's lately... It hovers around between 14 and 17 pieces. It gets grown to about 24 pieces depending on the event. So that's my main side project. And then I have another one that's based around the members of Fishbone called the Familyhood and Experience.
Say it again, the Familyhood
Nexperience.
Experience.
So that's like a really much a dub psychedelic project. The core of it is improvisation. Like, we just get up and make it up as we go along and feature different vocalists. So it's present and past members of Fishbone involved and some peripheral people. I don't want it to get too big because I got a big ass band in Trulio Disgracious. So we keep the guest vocalists down to about 3 people and don't obligate them to sing every song. Like, if they sing 3 to 5 songs, that's fine.
Yeah.
The rest is all improv, can be instrumental dub.
Tell me about your gear, your equipment. I know you play Warwick basses.
I hold the distinction as being the longest running continuous Warwick endorsee.
Congratulations.
And when I first played them, I immediately knew that's the sound I was looking for.
Is there a particular model that you play, or do you play more than one?
Thumb bass.
Thumb bass.
Thumb bass was my first model. And you know, the cool thing is that Robert DeLeo sold me that bass. He worked in the music store at the time.
Wow.
He and his brother Dean.
Yeah.
So I've been playing Warwick for a super long time, since before you knew of a Stone Temple Pilot.
Obviously.
And
I don't think he worked in a music store after Stone Temple Pilots was up and running.
no, I don't think he'll be looking for another job no matter what happens. He's a fine producer too, right?
What about things like strings and amps, effects?
So I've been just using Dean Markley strings pretty strong. And Pigtronics Pigtronics, I love my pedals. Now, when as a kid, Bootsy was like the epitome of bass cool. So I started off like collecting effects. And one day I was like, maybe I need to put these effects away and concentrate on playing bass. So actually, if you notice, most of the Fishbone catalog, there's no effects on bass. A distortion here and there, a little flavor here and there, but I didn't run around with pedals. And then I ran into Pigtronics. And I was like, whoa, this is badass. It's kind of, it appealed to me. And so together that relationship has actually blossomed into like the ultimate extension of what has been my sound is now enhanced with Pigtronics. I'm going nuts.
I know those folks. Great product, great company, great people. What about the future, Norwood? What else is in store? Is anything that you've always wanted to do but just haven't gotten around to yet?
I don't know. I'm like,
Just take it as it comes?
yeah. Like, it's not like I've reached all of my goals by far. Like, I still dream and dream big. But actually, right now, I'm in a state of mind of giving back. And, you know, it was actually quite a few years ago. Like, you know, my life, I love my life. I'm like, I've been living the dream no matter how you slice it. But sometimes it's not easy, right? And in one of those times where it wasn't easy, I kind of looked at myself and I was like, you know, no matter how rough I might imagine I have it, somebody's got it worse, and I could probably use my talent to give back. And almost as soon as I had that thought, somebody called me and asked me to do, not that quick, but, you know, took a little while later, somebody called me, asked me to do a benefit. I said yes. And it was an amazing experience. I'd done benefits before, but this time I had something else in my heart. And I continued to do things as they came up. And right now, I'm in the process of actually building a music conservatory in Watts with Flea.
Yeah, I know he's been active and
Yeah. Like, I'm happy to follow in them footsteps and be a part of something that's amazing, giving back.
that's very, very inspiring, and you set a good example for the rest of us.
Yeah.
Last question, Norwood. What would you be if you weren't a bass player? Something outside of music.
Well, when I was a kid, I kind of wanted to be a trash man. And it was because I worked at Taco Bell, and there was a girl that worked there at Taco Bell, and she drove a badass Corvette. And when she didn't come to work in the Corvette, she come in a badass new Cadillac, right? It was like 81, 82, 83, right? So one day I was like, damn, what does your father do? Like, and they had actually this giant motorhome that was brand new and badass. Like, what does your father do? She was like, oh, he's a trash man. I was like, really? She was like, yeah.
He wasn't like the owner of Waste Management?
No, he was a trash man.
Okay.
And so I thought about it. As a young musician, I was like, I could be a trash man. You go to work super early in the morning. So I could go to a club, play a show, like unload to 1:30, 2 a.m., go home, put my gear in the house, instead of going to sleep, go to work. And this is my young, crazy ass mind thinking. Like, I could go to work shit-faced, and who would care if the trash man is drunk?
I gotta tell you, Norwood, I've interviewed over 500 bass players, and I ask pretty much everybody that question. Nobody's given me that answer.
Yeah, well, that was me, like a young kid going like, wow, that's, you know. Yeah.
Trash
you know?
collectors are needed, and we all rely on them. We all need them.
And I was making plans on getting fucked up at the club and then going to work. Like, just be on the back of a trash truck. Like, who gives a f? Right? But, you know, like, that's just, but fortunately, like, I never had to do that, and I was able to forge my way as a musician, and you know, but yeah, like, that's how I was thinking.
Always good to end an interview on a high note like that. Norwood Fisher, this is always fun hanging out with you. I can't wait till we do it again.
Yeah.
Keep it up. Keep us posted on wherever your career takes you. And thanks again very much. We'll do a follow-up, and you'll bring us up to date on everything else that you've got going on.
I plan on continuing to having the time of my life. How about that?
How about that, indeed. On location in Hollywood, California, with our good friend Norwood Fisher. I'm John Liebman. You're watching for BassPlayersOnly.com.